got 16 minutes of recording. That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Jim and Jason. We're coming together today because you wanted to get some more clarification on the trust account procedure that I've developed in the last couple of weeks, just to make sure that we know how the trust accounting works for CitySurf Real Estate. Now, I just want to go through and highlight a couple of points. Now, with the requirements is that with all the trust account cash transactions, we need to put them into a source document, and some of the source documents could be the receipt book. We could have the check butts, like if we get checks given to us, but you know, all these sort of documents we need to then convert into trust cash book journals to go through the accounting system. The journals will then be converted into the ledgers. The ledger is generally the client ledger, like against which property the client belongs to. So a ledger account includes then the name of the person on behalf of which we act for the trust account. So we've got the procedure with the trust account system, which is the transactions going into source documents, in the journals, the trust ledger. We then do a trial balance, and we've got steps for that. And then we do the settlement and financial reports and the audits. So that's practically the base of the procedure. We've got a couple of key principles, and I believe that we need to make sure really that the key principles entail the audit, and that we have some practical ethical practices in managing the trust account, because it's not our money. We're just managing that on behalf of our principals, or that could be either the landlord, or it could be you know, a vendor and a buyer, because for the sales department, it's generally the deposit money that goes into the trust account. So yeah, so we've got a couple of key principles here that means to record the financial transaction and maintain the monies received and held, to accurately record all the disbursements and settlements, to produce accurate reports, and to ensure that all monies are held allocated to the right principals, to accurately calculate the ongoing balances of all monies held, and to adhere to the trust accounting cycle, which I've just mentioned, and to fully comply fully and properly with the requirements of the Estate Agents Act 1980 and associate regulations under that Act, which could be the General Accounts and Audit Regulations 2008. Okay, so you're pretty much familiar with all of that. Now, the other thing is that the key legislative and regulatory requirements I've mentioned in the procedure as well are the Estate Agents General Accounts and Audits Regulations 2008 for trust accounts need to be adhered to, and it's really important to ensure that the accounts are accurate, because under that regulation we need to do reconciliations and ensuring at the end of each month that the balances are correct. Now, the other thing is that the auditor, we need to have a proper auditor appointed for our trust accounts, and audits have to occur within 3 months of the end of the financial year, and then those reports are sent off as well. We need to make sure that we keep the auditor report for at least 5 years on the premises, accessible to anyone who wants to view them afterwards. So that's really the difference between a general account and a trust account, is that, you know, they need to be audited. The other thing is we still have the estate agent's use of trust money is really not allowed at all. We need to get written authority from the persons before we can withdraw money from the audit account. So we are not allowed to just take money and replace it and make that kind of transactions. So it's very stringent. So that's a couple of things that I put in the procedure. There is the actual transaction process, which is depositing money into the trust account. I'm not sure if I should go through all the details on that here, but there's practically just depositing the trust money. We have the cash receipts and the receipt books. Then we have the cash journals. We have the register of trust checks in case we get checks given to us. We need to keep a register of those. Then we have the computerized accounting system. So there's a couple of other regulations available in a sense of like we don't need to issue receipts to people who give us the money, but if they give it to us in cash or in check, we will have to. But if it's EFT, we don't have to because it's recorded within the system. Now, sometimes for the payments from the estate accounts, like obviously, money comes in, money goes out, we will have to only give it to the persons that are entitled to that money, usually the seller or the landlord, and it can be done by check or electronic transfer. So that's those parts of the cycle. The trust ledger accounts, we will make sure that we balance those off at the end of each month, and then the receipting, which is quite important as well. Sometimes we do have transfers between the ledgers that can happen as well in case there's a incorrect entry and so forth. So we have procedures for that. And then obviously the most important part is the monthly reconciliations. So we must balance the trust accounts and prepare statements each month. And Jim, you know most of that because you will have to sign off on them at the end of each month anyway. So the annual auditing, well, it only happens obviously once a year, and we've got an auditor already appointed, so who has done it in the past, but we just want to formalize that within the procedure. The other thing is we have to back up our records. We have to make sure that we store everything securely. And when we have securities like titles or other important documents, we have a register for that as well. So I've incorporated that into the procedure. Now the key responsibilities, we have to do that, the reconciliation statements, as I mentioned just before, need to be signed off every month. And then the other thing is we have to make sure that people, the staff here, understand, how to handle trust accounts in particular. And I think what we'll do is I'm going to prepare a training schedule so we can, go into individual facets of it with the relevant staff, because not everyone needs to know everything about it, but the sales staff, for instance, need to know about how to issue receipts, and and then obviously the admin staff need to know how to do the ledgers and all that sort of thing. Okay, so the other thing we've got is the tax requirements, what the ATO wants from us in regards to trust accounts. There's a couple of items that I've written down here. We need to have records. We need to ensure that we keep all the records, so that goes through the auditor, and that we've got that all according to the tax regulations stored and prepared when we require them. And other bits and pieces here as well. We need to register for GST and other taxes. We might need to do the annual report, the tax report, so that's all pretty standard for businesses. And so then I've got a bit on fiduciary duties and responsibilities. In the procedure, the highest legal duty of one party to another involves being bound ethically to act in the best interest of the other party. So that means what fiduciary means, and because we are managing the money on behalf of other people, so we need to be very ethical about it as well. That's practically what that entails. And like I said, the implementation of this particular procedure, I thought would be through training schedule that we'll organise with the rest of the staff. Okay, now I've also looked at some of the trust account systems that are electronically available, because a lot of the financial systems, they're standard systems. And because we're already using REST, I think that's probably one of the better systems. I sort of just made a bit of a comparison between REST and Console. and there's no need to really change anything at the moment to what we've got established. So I also attached an actual accounts policy for the trust account to that. And now I've just got to make sure that you guys are clear on all of that. I just wanted to ask you, Jim, the points that I mentioned within the procedure, like for instance the ledger, the trust ledgers. Do you think the way we're doing it at the moment is actually adhering to the standards, the proper standards?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way we deposit the money in the trust account, we at the moment we're doing it within the specific time frame of the next business day. So I think Jackie, she is pretty adamant making sure that occurs. So I think do you think that's sort of the way that we want to move forward with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you're pleased with that, the way it's already running. Now, Jason, have you got anything that you need, any clarification within the procedure here?
Yeah, I do. With the tax, with the receipts and keeping a balance of payments, are they needed for the trust accounts?
Yeah, of course, we do need to put the receipts out.
You touched on it earlier, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
get a bit more explanation.
No. We certainly we need depending on how the money comes in. Like if we do get a check or cash payment, which the cash payment is highly unlikely for sales transactions because they're generally bigger amounts, but for the smaller amounts for rentals and so forth, because we collect the rent on behalf of the landlord, so that all goes into the trust account. For the smaller amounts, sometimes people come and pay over the counter. We've got the receipt book at the front, and we just have to issue a receipt manually, and we have to make sure that that receipt then is transferred into the system via the cash journals. So that's happening every day. I think every day or every week, I'm not too sure. I've got to check back with Jackie, but I'll put that in the procedure. And we have to make sure that the client gets the physical receipts when they pay over the counter. When their money comes in electronically, we don't have to issue the receipt, and that the system records it. So that's the way that works.
No worries. Thank you.
All right. So I believe that this is pretty much like how we can then move forward with training the staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So there's no other things that you need to know. That's good. All right. Well, I'll get a training schedule organised, and then when I've got all that sorted, we'll get together and we do the training, the proper training on it. Great. Thanks very much.
No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.